Hey everybody, JJ coming back to you from the dungeon again, just going through some more of my favorite albums and things like that. And, I've been just kind of pulling out some of my old favorites and listening for inspiration the last little bit. And I came across this particular album and this particular band, and I hear them a lot on the radio, but I don't often hear songs from this particular album, which is kind of a surprise to me. In my opinion, I think this is the best album the band ever did. It's kind of like the height of creativity, the height of their production, the height of their songwriting, and all that kind of stuff. But it kind of falls a little on the wayside, maybe as far as their most well known or the most kind of popular thing, let's say. And the album is Sonic Temple, and the band is The Cult. And Sonic Temple is a great name for this because this album to me is kind of like early 80s albums. They kind of have, a kind of a dry production, basic kind of production for a lot of rock stuff. You get into the mid 80s, you get to Slippery When Wet, some of the Bon Jovi stuff, and then, 1985, 1986, you get into this kind of different production that's happening. Permanent Vacation from Aerosmith in 87. You start to get these big ambiances that are happening on albums. And, somebody like Bob Clearmountain, Bob Rock, Bruce Fairbairn, these guys are bringing in this kind of new production to rock and roll of the time. And Bob Rock was an assistant engineer on some of the Bon Jovi albums and kind of cut his teeth on those. And I don't know if the drum sound was particularly all kind of his on those, but there's definitely some carryover from the recordings he did with Bon Jovi into this album. And to me, this is kind of like, if you listen to the albums that came out before this from The Cult, they sound different. And this one kind of takes advantage of Bob Rock's production. I'm pretty sure this was the first album that Bob Rock produced after he came out from being an assistant engineer and producer and all that kind of stuff. So this is kind of Bob showcasing his sounds and his techniques and stuff like that as far as production goes. And there's Sonic Temple is a great name for this because this album sonically is just so rich sounding. There's so many elements and just strings, and the drums are huge, and it's just a big production, and it really lent itself well to the types of songs that The Cult was putting out. These kind of some up tempo, but a lot of kind of mid tempo songs, and there's always a balancing point between big ambience and tempo, and if something's too fast and it's too ambient, then things get lost in the mix or whatever. But they had a great balance of that. And this album, I didn't get into this album until I was a teenager. I had heard to get into some of the songs, Firewoman was the single that came off of this album. It's one of the better known Cult songs, but it's probably not the one most people know or think of first. She Saw Sanctuary is probably that. But Firewoman would have been the first song I heard off of this. And it was on the radio at the time, so I likely would have heard it off the radio. Another song I believe was another single was Sweet Soul Sister. And both of those songs are amazingly well written and just well produced rock songs and great sing-along choruses and stuff like that. Those two songs kind of end up being the most well known of the songs on here. But in my opinion, my favorite song that's on this is a song called Soul Asylum. And it's kind of, I hate to, compare it to these huge songs, and, it's someone will inevitably kind of disagree with my my analogy for it. But when I think of that song and kind of what it is, it reminds me of Kashmir from Led Zeppelin, and that it's got this kind of pulse to it, just it's not quite exactly the same as Kashmir, but if I was to ever meet the guys from the Cult and you know, I would love to see if that was perhaps an inspiration behind the song, was Kashmir from Led Zeppelin, because it gives me it has the similar type of vibe to it, and it's an amazing song. It's a really long song, but I mean, I think it's almost 7 minutes long, but yeah, it's just amazing. It's an amazing tune to listen to, and it's something, when I'm going through this album, I'll listen to it all the way through and then inevitably come back to Soul Asylum to give it another listen. So I think I've covered it on this channel once before, many years ago, but it's definitely a song I should probably reapproach again. And I love playing along with it so much too. It's so fun. But yeah, this is a very cool album, and you know, recorded at I think it was at Little Mountain, if I'm not mistaken, the famous Vancouver studio. Yeah, recorded and mixed at Little Mountain Studios. Just a, you know, amazing time in music when stuff was coming out of there. And you know, for years and years, it's like I was always, without reading the credits and without having them, I was when I would look back at that time, Matt Sorum was the drummer. You know, Matt Sorum, who's famously in Guns N' Roses and yeah, a handful of other bands over the years, but probably best known for Guns N' Roses. And he was the Cult's live drummer at the time, and I had always made the assumption that he had recorded the album as well. And I was always surprised to find out that Mickey Curry, and it's just like, it seems like such a, you know, I couldn't tell you anything else really kind of Mickey's done. Like, the name is familiar, but it's just like kind of escapes me. But yeah, I was surprised to see that Matt Sorum hadn't recorded the drums for this, because it's kind of very much in his style of drumming as well too. So it's he was a great fit for the band when they came along. So, and but yeah, it's an amazing album for the band, and yeah, it's an awesome stepping stone for Bob Rock as well. Myself, like you know, working in the audio industry, and Bob Rock's always been, you know, a big influence of mine, and you know, watching the making of the Black Album with him, and you know, he's been involved in a lot of my favorite sounding albums. The Black Album, Dr. Feelgood, and this one is like kind of the first step towards like those albums, and you know, it hasn't quite dialed up the ambience and the drum sound to 10 yet, like Dr. Feelgood did or the Black Album did. But you can see where it's building kind of towards those things, and you can see some of the connections as to, you know, how Bob ended up working with, you know, Metallica. I believe at the time this album came out, the Cult was opening for Metallica when Metallica was on the And Justice for All tour. I'm pretty sure I remember the Cult was opening for them, and then, you know, Bob goes on to do Dr. Feelgood, and then you have these connections between the bands, and maybe that's the connection, and you know, Matt Sorum eventually becoming friends with Lars Ulrich and that kind of stuff, and you know, I wonder if those relationships are kind of all intertwined that way, and that's how you arrive there. But yeah, it's an amazing album, and if you haven't had a chance to check it out, I'm sure if you know the Cult, you've probably heard Firewoman and perhaps you know, Sweet Soul Sister, but you know, a song like Sun King opens the album. That's a great song. American Horse is awesome. Another one of my favorites is New York City, that's on here. Kind of like there's some good like 80s like up-tempo rock songs that are on this album. So nothing too special going on with the picture there, just 3 cool guys in the desert. So no drummer to be seen, but that's okay. I added them later, I guess. But yeah, it's if you haven't had a chance to check this album out, give it a listen. It's one of my kind of go-tos if I'm in the mood for some 80s hard rock, and it never disappoints me when I listen to it. So hopefully if you check it out, it won't disappoint you either. So this is the one about the Cult, Sonic Temple. Check it out. Cheers.